Hello friends, this is Brian O. Well, I got a couple of requests for the wiring that I had promised. So what I'm going to do here is basically just go through a real quick introduction. I'm not going to do a whole lot of hands-on. Basically just give you some descriptions and some of the things that were going through my head before I started wiring. Some of the considerations that you might want to keep in mind, obviously, is your pocketbook. I mean, if the more money that you want to spend on your power units and your wiring and all of that and your fixtures and your appliances, that has a real factor on how you want to do your wiring, how you want to, how much money, obviously how much money you want to spend on your power distribution panel. So that was one of the things, the pocketbook. You have to excuse me while I look at my notes. The type of wiring that you might want to use, I mean, you got probably the biggest wiring that you'd want to use as far as wiring in your fixtures and your appliances and stuff is probably no bigger than a 12 gauge. And I personally use 14 gauge speaker wire for my DC units, my multi-strand things. My AC 120 volt stuff, I used a 14 gauge single core, 14-2 with ground for that. Some of the other things I was thinking, your power unit, there are a couple. Well, before I move on to that, let's talk about your fixtures. You got your light fixtures, you got your incandescent regular bulbs, and then you got your LEDs. LEDs use a whole lot less power, a whole lot less amps. But I used my incandescents for my dome lights. I just replaced the fixtures that were the dome lights in the bus, like that one right there. And but I plan on getting LED bulbs eventually to replace those, so I can reduce my power consumption. Some of the other things that, like I said, you want your power units. Your power units, I went with this. Studied two different ones. There's WFCO, WFCO, and then Progressive Dynamics. The things that you want to think about with those are the number of circuits, number of 12 volt circuits, the number of 110 circuits you're going to want to do, and then the shoreline amps. And when you're plugging your bus into a regular outlet, you want to figure out how big you want, either 30 amps or 50. A lot of the, as I read, a lot of the RV places now have 30 amp hookups along with 50 amp. So they've really gone a variety there. Some even have just 20 amps, which is your regular outlet, and then some of the charging options you want to think about with your power units. I'm not really familiar with the WFCO. I really didn't study them a whole lot. The one thing that really got me with the Progressive Dynamic units, though, is they have a thing called Charging Wizards, which basically the more power you need for your battery, like it did a trickle charge, floating charge, just to keep it up, and then a full charge, when your batteries are really low, and then they had, so it would regulate that as your power consumption was needed. Another thing that I liked about the Progressive Dynamics is they had what's called a desulfurator, which basically, desulfuration is breaking down the crystals in your batteries, which make your batteries go bad. When it builds up those crystals, that's what causes your batteries to go bad. So a desulfuration breaks those crystals down and extends the life of your battery up to 3 or 4 times. So if you've got a 3-year battery, it would extend it possibly up to 12 years, which I thought was well worth what I decided to do. One of the things that I also thought about, shifting gears, some of the pros for doing a Skoolie, a school bus, is that the whole chassis, everything, the walls, the floors, the ceiling, it's all grounded. All right, it's a chassis grounded system, and that's a plus. That means you don't have to run 2 wires, a positive and a negative for everything. But the downside of having a chassis grounded system is that you have to be really, really careful with your placement of your screws and your nails when you're furring out the walls and putting the paneling up and things like that, because if you shoot a nail through the paneling and it goes through your positive and that touches the metal, you automatically blow a circuit. And I had that happen, so I learned that one the hard way. So let's see. Let me look. Really easy short. That's really the pros and cons of Skoolie. 12-volt systems are really easy. I mean, you got a positive and negative. You don't have to worry about the ground because the negative is the ground. So, and then all you've got left is your 110. So I'm going to show you really quick my my progressive dynamics unit, and then and just show you what I got. Now the one I got wasn't what I thought it was going to be, as far as I thought I was going to get more 12-volt circuits, but I could solder in circuits. So I'm just going to flip this over so you can see my layout real quick. And then I'm going to call it an end of this video because I'm almost up to 8 minutes, and it takes a while to upload all this stuff. So I'm going to turn this over here like this. Let's see if I can get the video, back it out. So that is my unit. There we go. So I've got the 12 volts right here, and I've got 110s right here. Now one of this bottom breaker, sorry for the quality of this bottom breaker right down here, this is actually for the charging unit. So you have to leave one slot. Think about leaving one slot open just for the charging unit. This big one here is the main breaker, and that's the shoreline. And I went with a 50 amp on that, even though my wiring is for 30 amp, because the cord that I bought came as a 50 amp, and I had to buy an adapter to go down to 30 amp. So that's the way it went. So anyway, this is just a real quick video about this, and I plan on doing more in-depth videos on taking this panel apart a little bit, so you can see how the wiring went. So until next time, I really appreciate your patience, and we'll go from here. Alright, thank you very much. Bye.